Have you ever had the feeling that someone around you doesn't like you, but keeps smiling as if nothing is wrong? The truth is, not everyone who approaches you has good intentions. There are hidden feelings that are not revealed in words, but are revealed in gestures, silences, and subtle attitudes that, little by little, erode their peace. We live in a society where appearance is valued more than essence. Fake smiles, forced courtesy, and poisoned compliments are all part of the social theater that many masterfully interpret. That's where the wisdom of the Stoics comes in. Philosophers such as Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus taught us to observe clearly, act prudently, and protect our energy from harmful attachments. In this video, we'll reveal the 9 hidden signs that someone doesn't like you even if you're always around. What's more, we're going to show you how to identify these social masks, develop your self-perception, and free yourself, in a strategically and emotionally intelligent way, from these energy-draining connections. Prepare to see beyond words. What will be revealed here can transform not only the way you relate, but also the way you position yourself in the world. Because when you start to see clearly, it is impossible to continue accepting crumbs. So, are you ready to find out who really deserves to be by your side? Sometimes, the person who compliments you the most in public is the same person who feels silent contempt for you. The most confusing? She disguises this with an impeccable smile and a kind posture. Body language, however, almost always delivers crossed arms, looks that avoid contact, and a certain delay in celebrating your victories. At this time, wisdom lies in perceiving beyond the obvious. Not everyone who is by your side really cheers for you. Forced courtesy is a classic of modern hypocrisy. The person talks to you, laughs with you. But inside, there is a resistance, a tension. Have you ever noticed how certain social gatherings look like real plays? Many act to keep up appearances and fulfill a role. Stoicism teaches us that we should observe deeds and not words. As Seneca would say, appearance is deceptive, but habit reveals the truth. Some people only treat you well because they need to maintain their pose. Deep down, there is veiled envy, silent competition, and a constant desire to see you make mistakes. They can't stand its authenticity, because it contrasts with their falsehood. The problem? The more you try to please, the more food you give for these masks to continue to exist. And this social game only drains your energy. If you've ever left a conversation feeling awkward, like something is wrong even without rude words, trust that intuition. The body feels before the mind understands. This emotional coldness disguised as politeness is a clear sign of toxic relationships disguised as friendship. Indifference, when disguised as a reserved way, is a trap for your emotional health. You don't have to beg for affection, attention, or presence. True bonding is light, genuine, and requires no effort to exist. When the relationship becomes a constant theater, it's a sign that the stage is set and you may be the only one who still believes in the script. Authenticity does not combine with falsehood. And where there is self-love, there is no room for masks. The Stoics always said observe more, talk less. Marcus Aurelius did not look for sweet words, he observed attitudes. Epictetus taught us that true freedom lies in choosing what affects us. And when it comes to falsehood, this philosophy is a powerful shield. Wisdom lies in recognizing that not every emotion deserves a response and that not every relationship deserves permanence. Have you ever stopped to think about how many times you only trusted what someone said and ignored the signs that the behavior screamed? The body language, the tone of voice, the delay in answers communicates everything. Seneca would say, don't waste time arguing with those who have already shown you who they are. Genuine relationships don't need constant explanation. They flow, grow, and don't require continuous effort to prove loyalty. Modern life requires an emotional wisdom that the ancients already practiced. The Stoics talked about maintaining internal balance even when the external world is chaotic. And this is especially useful for dealing with harmful bonds. When you understand that you don't have to react to everything, you gain a rare power, that of protecting yourself without wearing yourself out. It is the beginning of emotional awakening. A good Stoic exercise to apply before reacting to any uncomfortable situation: take a deep breath and ask yourself, is this worthy of my energy? This simple practice can save you from a lot of subtle manipulation, emotional games, and empty talk. After all, what defines a wise man is not the absence of conflict, but the choice of what deserves attention. Choose wisely. By cultivating healthy boundaries, you honor not only yourself, but the time you invest in others. Self-love, for the Stoics, was respect for oneself. Not an inflated ego, but a firm dignity. And it is precisely this silent force that unmasks hypocrisy and attracts true relationships. The next step? Learning to trust your intuition when something seems like it just wrong. You know that strange feeling that arises when you are close to someone and, even for no apparent reason, feel discomfort? It's like something is out of place, but you can't explain it. This is your intuition, a kind of emotional wisdom that captures what the eye doesn't yet see. Emotional coldness disguised as politeness is a classic example of this. And the body feels it before the mind understands. This intuition is your radar against toxic relationships. Too often, we insist on harmful attachments just because the person did nothing wrong. But the problem isn't what she does, it's what she doesn't do. Omission, indifference, and drained energy gradually erode the relationship. Listening to this subtle discomfort can avoid immense emotional exhaustion down the road. Stoic wisdom values inner silence. Marcus Aurelius meditated daily to clear the noises of the mind and hear himself clearly. This may seem far removed from our routine, but it's simple to apply before forcing social gatherings. Notice how you feel after them. Is it light or drained? This answer is a silent thermometer of true loyalty. There are people who don't say an offensive word, but their presence is enough to mess up your emotions. This is not an exaggeration, it is refined perception. Genuine relationships do not cause this kind of discomfort. When you come out worse than you entered, something is out of alignment. Maybe it's time to review those who take up too much space in your emotional field without deserving it. This intuitive discomfort is not weakness. On the contrary, it is a sign of personal growth. The more you know yourself, the more sensitive you become to the energies that surround you. This is emotional awakening, the ability to notice who strengthens you and who just sucks your life force with fake smiles and rehearsed phrases. And in the end, this perception is a gift even if it comes wrapped in discomfort. Ignoring the signals is like hearing a fire alarm and continuing to watch television. You feel that something is wrong, but you rationalize, oh, it must be in my head. But it is not. Harmful bonds give signs all the time, in the distant look, in the absent support, in generic words. And every time you shut up in the face of it, a little of your self-love falls apart. It is common to try to justify the other's behavior with excuses. It's his way, she's going through a phase, but we've known each other for years. The truth is that time together is not synonymous with a healthy bond. Fake friends often stay just for convenience. And the more you ignore the signs, the more the relationship becomes fertile ground for subtle manipulation. Stoicism teaches us to accept reality as it is, not as we would like it to be. And that hurts. It hurts to realize that that loved one has hypocritical attitudes, that her affection is conditioned. But this pain also liberates. Because when you face the truth, you can finally break the cycle of emotional exhaustion. And this step is necessary to protect its authenticity. Think of it this way: having toxic relationships is like walking around with a tight shoe just because it's beautiful. At first, you tolerate it. Then he starts limping. In the end, he can no longer walk. And life calls for movement. If something is holding you back, it's time to take that weight off, even if it means pushing away those who don't know how to treat you with respect and true loyalty. Your well-being is worth more than keeping up appearances. Finally, remember, no bond is worth your peace. Those who value you do not confuse presence with obligation, affection with interest, or care with control. What comes from the heart is light. And when it is not, the body and soul warn you. The problem is when we insist on staying. Even though he has already realized that there is no more room to flourish. There are attitudes that do not need words to shout the truth. People can hide feelings, but they can't fully disguise the signs. Falsehood is like a crack in a mirror. No matter how much they try to cover it up, sooner or later, the real image appears. And that's where the importance of self-perception comes in. When you learn to identify patterns, you are no longer an easy target. These signs are subtle but constant. A look that cools down when you enter the room. A compliment that comes with a built-in critique. An absence disguised as was busy. These are forms of indifference and silent contempt that hide behind fake smiles. Once you notice these details, you begin to protect yourself not with armor, but with healthy boundaries. Stoic wisdom encourages us to observe rather than react. Instead of asking yourself, why does he do this to me? The focus shifts to, why do I keep allowing this in my life? That this type of reflection activates emotional awakening, and once awakened, it is difficult to accept shallow, manipulative, or hypocritical relationships again. You come to crave depth, true loyalty, and authenticity. Let's explore now 9 concrete signs that indicate when someone doesn't like you, even if they try to look like the opposite. And it's not about paranoia, it's about clarity. These behaviors are recognizable patterns and you've probably witnessed them. The difference is that now, with this new look, you will know exactly how to act when they arise, because those who see, protect themselves. This is not an invitation to judgment, but to liberation. By understanding these signs, you stop insisting on ties that only hurt, and it begins to build a cleaner, more nourishing and true emotional network. So take a deep breath. The next few points might hurt a little, but every healing begins with a truth that we finally have. The courage to look at hidden. There are attitudes that do not need words to shout the truth. People can hide feelings, but they can't fully disguise the signs. Falsehood is like a crack in a mirror. No matter how much they try to cover it up, sooner or later, the real image appears. And that's where the importance of self-perception comes in. When you learn to identify patterns, you are no longer an easy target. These signs are subtle but constant. A look that cools down when you enter the room. A compliment that comes with a built-in critique. An absence disguised as was busy. These are forms of indifference and silent contempt that hide behind fake smiles. Once you notice these details, you begin to protect yourself not with armor, but with healthy boundaries. Stoic wisdom encourages us to observe rather than react. Instead of asking yourself, why does he do this to me? The focus shifts to, why do I keep allowing this in my life? This type of reflection activates emotional awakening. And once awakened, it is difficult to accept shallow, manipulative, or hypocritical relationships again. You come to crave depth, true loyalty, and authenticity. Let's explore now 9 concrete signs that indicate when someone doesn't like you, even if they try to look like the opposite. And it's not about paranoia, it's about clarity. These behaviors are recognizable patterns and you've probably witnessed them. The difference is that now, with this new look, you will know exactly how to act when they arise. Because those who see, protect themselves. This is not an invitation to judgment, but to liberation. By understanding these signs, you stop insisting on ties that only hurt. And it begins to build a cleaner, more nourishing and true emotional network. So take a deep breath. The next few points might hurt a little. But every healing begins with a truth that we finally have the courage to look at hidden. Have you ever noticed how some people only show up to support when it's convenient for them? When you're on the rise, they come up with shallow compliments and ready-made phrases. But in difficult times, total silence. This is typical selective support, hypocritical behavior masquerading as friendship. Relationships like this are dangerous, because they create the illusion of connection, but they only work when they don't require real effort. The Stoic Epictetus said that the true test of character is in actions, not intentions. And this is doubly true in relationships. Someone who claims to be your friend, but never moves a finger for you off the public stage, is not an ally, he is an audience. These people applaud when you shine, but turn their backs when the lights go out. And this type of behavior gradually erodes your self-confidence. People like this only show empathy when there is a social advantage in appearing good. They like to be by your side when your presence adds status, but disappear when your pain demands true attention. This reveals a fragile friendship, which does not stand the test of time or suffering. It is in these moments that you begin to differentiate between genuine ties and harmful ties. Do you want to identify hypocritical support? Just observe when you tell an achievement. Does the person really celebrate or change the subject? When you need a shoulder, does she show up or make excuses? Emotional indifference in these moments is a warning. It's not about expecting perfection, but about recognizing who is really with you and who is only there when it suits you. It's hard to realize that the one you considered loyal was only around when everything was going well. But that's where personal growth comes in. Learning to recognize these patterns makes you stronger. You stop seeking external validation and start building relationships based on authenticity. Because, in the end, better to be alone than in bad company. Especially by those who pretend to support you. Envy rarely appears with an ugly face. Most of the time, it comes dressed up as a compliment, disguised as advice or masked as a concern. People who can't stand their success are unlikely to admit it. Instead, they make subtle comments that devalue their achievements. Wow, how lucky you are. It doesn't even seem that difficult, right? Seemingly harmless phrases, but loaded with poison. The most dangerous thing is that this type of envy is veiled. It doesn't attack you directly, but it undermines your confidence little by little. When you share something good, the response is cold, the gaze is empty, and the silence says more than any words. Relationships like this are emotionally toxic. As Seneca taught, it is better to walk alone than with someone who disguises contempt for friendship. These people can't handle the fact that you're moving forward. They compete in silence and are bothered by their authenticity, because it reveals how much they still live with masks. And the worst, sometimes they are close people who use a mild tone to hide their internal frustration. Recognizing this behavior is the first step to protecting your energy. Don't confuse humility with submission. Celebrating your victories isn't arrogance, it's self-love. Those who truly love you vibrate with your achievements, without fear of overshadowing. Those who are envious, on the other hand, hide behind fake smiles and tips that, in fact, want to put you down. A clear example? That person who always has a but after any good news from you. The wisdom of the Stoics teaches us to be firm, not cold. To have limits, not walls. And in this case, imposing limits is essential. Disguised envy does not deserve space on your desk. You don't need to prove anything to anyone, nor do you need to dim your brightness to fit in the field of vision of those who are bothered by your light. Your journey is unique, and those who don't know how to admire it don't need to follow. It's strange to imagine that someone close to you can feel pleasure from your pain, but it happens more than it seems. Sometimes, the person does not openly celebrate their falls, but their reaction delivers a discreet twinkle in their eyes, a wow, what a shame, too cold, or even that silence that screams satisfaction. This type of behavior reveals a lack of empathy disguised as neutrality. When you share a difficult moment and notice that the other seems more curious than supportive, turn on the alert. The gossip, in these cases, is not out of concern, it is to feed on your suffering. People like that won't support you or lift you up. Deep down, they root for you to keep stumbling, because it makes them feel better about their own frustrations. Stoic wisdom teaches that we should surround ourselves with people who help us evolve, not bystanders of our suffering. As Epictetus would say, do not worry about what is not under your control. And the opinion or reaction of others to your pain. It is definitely not. What is under your control is who you allow to remain by your side. You don't need an audience for difficult moments. He needs allies, people who hold his hand when everything collapses. Those who take pleasure in their pain do not even deserve to know about their victory. Observe, does this person share your joy sincerely, or does he only show up when something has gone wrong? Relationships like this are like poison in small doses. When you realize it, you are already intoxicated. Cultivating authenticity also means learning to be silent in front of those who do not vibrate with your heart. Not all news needs to be shared. Not every friend needs to know about your life. Protecting yourself from these presences is an act of self-love. You deserve genuine bonds, not connections driven by silent resentment and false smiles in the midst of your pain. Indifference is one of the quietest forms of rejection. He doesn't yell, he doesn't accuse, he doesn't argue, he just erases you. You speak and the person responds with monosyllables. Share something important and she changes the subject. The connection is shallow, as if you were just an irrelevant detail in the scenario of her life. And, little by little, this undermines their self-esteem, their energy, and even their identity. Emotional coldness, in this case, is not a lack of time, it is a lack of interest. And the most painful thing is to realize this coming from someone who, theoretically, cares. The person is physically present, but emotionally distant. She listens without listening, responds without getting involved. This creates a feeling of emptiness next to someone. And the worst loneliness is the one you feel in the presence of another. Emotionally indifferent people treat everything as whatever. They are not rejoiced in their victories, nor are they moved by their pains. Its existence is like background noise. And no matter how close you try, the return is always the same, a wall of ice. As Seneca said, it is better to be hated for being true than loved for an illusion. And being ignored by someone who pretends to care. It is also a painful illusion. Self-love begins when you realize that you deserve more than the minimum. Genuine relationships have depth, involvement, real presence. If you're all the time trying to prove yourself to someone, stop. Its essence does not need to be validated by those who only see superficialities. Emotional indifference is a mirror. It shows how much the other values or not your presence. Wisdom is in accepting what is, not what we would like it to be. You can keep insisting, but the price is high: emotional exhaustion, drained energy, and a sense of worth that slowly dissolves. When the connection becomes a one-sided effort, it is a sign that there is no longer a bond, only an attempt. And you deserve reciprocity, not emotional resistance disguised as neutrality. Nothing is more confusing than living with someone who changes their attitude according to the environment or company. In one day, the person is kind, approachable, almost a close friend. The next, act like they barely know you, especially when other people are around. This kind of inconsistent behavior is a strong sign of falsehood. And, to make matters worse, it is usually accompanied by vague justifications and lame excuses. Respect, when it is true, is constant. It does not depend on the audience, nor on convenience. If someone only treats you well when there are no best options around, it's because their consideration is conditional. Relationships like this create insecurity, make you doubt yourself, and begin to undermine your confidence little by little. It's like building something on sand. All it takes is a wave or a new friendship for everything to collapse. Stoic philosophy values coherence between thought, speech, and action. And in the emotional field, this means integrity in relationships. As Epictetus said, what is true does not change with circumstances. A friendship that needs to camouflage itself in front of others is not friendship, it is convenience. People who really value you don't hesitate to show it, regardless of who is watching. Want to test someone's consistency? Notice how she behaves when you're not present. And also when you are, but surrounded by others. Does it include you or ignore you? Does it value you or change your tone? These variations aren't just moodiness, they're clues about your real place in her life. Where there is authenticity, there is emotional stability. The rest is just disguise. You don't need a manual to understand a healthy relationship, it explains itself. Where there is self-love, unstable treatment is not accepted. Inconsistent behavior is a type of emotional manipulation that keeps you stuck in doubt. Is it just in my head? Spoiler, it's not. And realizing this is already half the battle to free yourself. Manipulation is not always aggressive. Sometimes, she comes dressed in worry, disguised as advice or camouflaged in gestures of care. Subtle manipulative people make you feel guilty for having wills of your own. They use phrases like "I only want the best for you," but this good curiously always takes you away from your dreams and brings you closer to their desires. And you don't even realize that you are being led. This type of person dominates the emotional game. She knows your triggers, knows when you're vulnerable, and uses that to her advantage. Gradually, you begin to shape your choices for fear of disappointing. He begins to avoid certain subjects, to rethink his attitudes, to silence himself. This is not care, it is control. And the cruelest thing, it's done so subtly that you blame yourself for feeling bad. The wisdom of the Stoics teaches that we must be masters of ourselves. Epictetus said that freedom begins when we stop being guided by the emotions of others. A relationship where you have to walk on eggshells all the time isn't a partnership, it's an emotional prison. And the subtle manipulator has as his main tool the fear of losing the bond. He knows that you value the relationship and takes advantage of it. To identify this type of manipulation, observe: does the person respect your decisions, even when they disagree? Or does she try to convince you with guilt-laden phrases, such as "don't say I didn't warn you" later? Handlers rarely scream. They whisper, insinuate, and distort. And they often play the victim when you finally set a healthy boundary. Breaking this cycle requires courage. Self-love here means regaining the right to think and act for oneself. Healthy relationships do not require submission, but mutual respect. When someone tries to control their emotions, it's not affection, it's selfishness. And as much as subtle manipulation is difficult to identify, once you see it, it is impossible to unsee. You know that moment when you expected support and received silence? When someone is silent while you are attacked, criticized, or wronged, that omission speaks louder than any words. Whoever cares, defends. Those who have true loyalty, take a stand even if it's behind the scenes. The absence of reaction in these moments reveals how fragile or interest-based the relationship is. Often, the omission hides behind neutrality. He says that he doesn't want to get involved, that it's not his problem. But when the tables are turned, he expects unconditional support. This shows an emotional imbalance and a lack of reciprocity. Fake friends don't step on your toes, but they also don't take away those who do. And that says a lot about their character. Stoic philosophy teaches that we must be firm in the face of what is just. Marcus Aurelius was not only a thinker, but an emperor who acted according to principles. He knew that true strength is not in avoiding conflict, but in taking a stand wisely. In the same way, omitting oneself in the face of another's pain is a kind of elegant cowardice, but still cowardice. A person who disappears when you need it most isn't Byzanthine making a choice. And choices show priorities. It's not about demanding heroism, but about recognizing who is willing to step out of comfort for you. If, when you were wronged, all you received was the silence of those who claim to support you, perhaps you have already discovered where true affection is and where it has never been. Be careful: those who are silent when you suffer, probably do not applaud from the heart when you win. Omission is also positioning, only camouflaged. And to continue to allow this kind of bond is a disservice to your self-love. Justice begins with self-care. And sometimes, the greatest gesture of love you can make. It is to move away from those who watch in silence while you bleed. Have you ever been with someone and, after minutes of conversation, felt like you'd run an emotional marathon? The person didn't attack you, didn't yell at you, didn't criticize you directly. But still, something in her drained her energy. This is the presence that exhausts. Relationships like this are exhausting, even in silence. They consume because they require constant attention, extra care, emotional vigilance. Emotionally draining people carry a cloud of negativity in disguise. Sometimes they talk only about problems, other times they compete for attention. And there are those who live victimizing themselves to keep you around. In the end, you become a therapist, a counselor, an emotional babysitter minus what you're really supposed to be, just you. And the most subtle? The guilt that arises when you try to walk away. Stoicism alerts us to who we share our peace with. Seneca said that the soul gets sick in bad company. And he was not only talking about obvious bad influences, but about these connections that empty our energy without us realizing it. Genuine relationships recharge, inspire, strengthen. Toxic drugs, even with a calm appearance, gradually suck their vitality. You realize something is wrong when you start to feel bad just thinking about meeting that person. The body anticipates tiredness. You come home drained, mentally tired, with that feeling of something is heavy. And it is. It is the weight of maintaining bonds that demand more than they give back. And this, over time, compromises their emotional well-being and mental health. The antidote is simple, though not always easy: acknowledge, accept, and walk away. Not out of anger, but out of self-care. Self-love is also knowing with whom it is no longer worth sharing coffee, conversation, and, above all, soul. Because those who deplete their energy don't deserve the best from you. And preserving its essence is one of the greatest acts of wisdom anyone can practice. Toxic relationships don't arise overnight. They build up slowly, between forced compliments, calculated silences, and gestures that hurt more than any words. These signals, which you now know, are silent poisons. And the longer you tolerate them, the harder it becomes to recognize your own voice in the noise of manipulation. That's why identifying is the first step to breaking free. To free oneself does not mean to cut everything abruptly, but to become aware. It is to look at the bonds and ask, does it nourish me or exhaust me? Does it strengthen or weaken me? When you start asking these questions honestly, the social mask of many falls off. And along with it, the guilt you carried for trying to maintain what didn't make sense for a long time. Self-love is not selfishness, it is emotional survival. It's you stop begging for affection, attention, or validation. It is getting out of ties that demand a lot and deliver little. It is to realize that true loyalty is silent, constant, firm. And that harmful bonds, however old they may be, do not deserve a place where their authenticity now dwells. Stoic wisdom teaches us that freedom begins within. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself every day, as a way of reminding himself of who he was. How about doing the same? Write about the relationships that make you stronger and the ones that weaken you. Name the signs. Give shape to the invisible. And then decide, with courage and awareness, who deserves to continue being part of your journey. In the end, you're not alone. Many have been through this. The difference is that few had the courage to break away. But you're not just anyone. You are awakening. And those who wake up, do not go back to sleep in the same place where they once bled in silence. Sometimes, the best way to see a relationship clearly is to stop and ask yourself the right questions. They work like a mirror, they don't distort, they just show what has always been there. So, take a deep breath and be honest with yourself. Forget about the time spent together, the usual ties, or the fear of hurting. The truth sets you free. And it starts with 3 simple questions. Does she celebrate her victories? Think about it. When you achieve something, does that person vibrate with you or diminish the achievement? A cold congratulations, an awkward silence, or that biased comment. All this is a symptom of veiled envy. Those who love, celebrate with a twinkle in their eyes. Those who pretend, deliver their frustration in the details. Do you feel good after interacting with her? Some people lighten the environment just by being present. Others, even in silence, sell out. Evaluate the impact this person has on your energy. If every time you talk, you end up more confused, tired, or insecure, something is wrong. And it's not you. Does it show that it values you? Appreciation is not said, it is demonstrated. It is in small gestures, in attentive listening, in spontaneous care. Those who value make you feel seen. On the other hand, those who keep you for convenience, treat you with emotional coldness and indifference disguised as neutrality. The difference between the two things is clear when you stop fooling yourself. Answering these questions truthfully can change the way you position yourself in relationships. It's not about cutting the world off, but about understanding who really deserves a place at your table. Because your peace is worth more than keeping up appearances. And its authenticity should never be a bargaining chip to fit where there is no room for truth. These questions are invitations. Invitations to a more lucid, firmer, more honest look. And maybe, for the first time in a long time, you'll realize that it's okay to choose yourself. After all that has been said, it is clear not everyone deserves to be by your side. And that's okay. Life is made of cycles, and some bonds, no matter how old, need to be left behind for you to grow. Surround yourself with those who do you good. From those who vibrate with you, respect you behind the scenes and support you even when the whole world turns its back. Genuine relationships are rare, so they need to be cultivated wisely. Choosing yourself is the beginning of healing. When you start filtering who comes into your life based on authenticity and respect, everything changes. The environment changes. Your mood changes. Your self-esteem flourishes. And suddenly you realize that the loneliness of being with the right people is 1,000 times better than the turmoil of being surrounded by the wrong people. Peace is not a luxury, it is a necessity. Stoic wisdom teaches us to live with clarity and intention. And in the process, learning to say no is just as liberating as saying yes to those who really matter. Who preserves your energy, who respects your limits, and who walks by your side without trying to mold you. These are the right ones. And these are the ones you should connect with, invest in, and grow with. You no longer have to beg for attention, or wear yourself out trying to maintain bonds that only exist when you make an effort. Let go of what hurts. Break with what drains. And rebuild your emotional network based on self-love, true loyalty, and real reciprocity. This is not being cold, it is being mature. It is to understand that your peace has a price, and that you should not negotiate it with those who treat you as an option. Remember, the closer you get to your essence, the more the universe pushes away those who are not in tune with it. And everything that seemed like a loss, it was deliverance. Now that you know these hidden signs, the choice is in your hands. Will you continue to ignore what your heart has already perceived? Or will you start acting with the courage that your authenticity demands? Ask yourself honestly, why do I insist on keeping those who weaken me close? What prevents me from moving away from those who only show up when they need to? And most importantly, how many versions of myself have I had to hide just to fit into the expectations of others? It's time to stop accepting less than you deserve. From today on, decide that only those who look you in the eye with truth, not with ulterior motives, will remain by your side. Cultivate your energy, respect your intuition, and free yourself from the guilt of breaking away from what no longer serves you. You're not being harsh, you are being loyal to yourself. And that's strength, not coldness. If this content brought you clarity, if any part of this video seemed to describe exactly what you experience, so this is the right time to take the next step. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to wake up, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. Activate the notification bell to continue receiving content that feeds your soul, strengthens your mind, and awakens your conscience. Here, you are not alone. Here, you find clarity, guidance, and truth. Because when we connect with what is real, everything around us begins to change. And if it's to change, may it be to flourish.